Hello everybody. This video is going to serve as my 400 subscriber special, which is a subscriber count that I honestly didn't even imagine I'd get to. So I want to start off by saying if you're one of my regular day one viewers, or even a new viewer, or just somebody stopping in, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. Every single one of you matters to me because I've said it before. You guys are what make this seem more so like a community that I'm working with, rather than just making videos and uploading them and hoping people are watching them and getting things out of them and whatnot. But the people who engage and watch and listen and give feedback and even just like or comment or just watch, you are what are making this seem so much like a ongoing conversation that I'm having with people, which is just what I wanted and just why I made this YouTube channel, was to get out there and talk with people and expand our perspectives and open our minds and learn new things and get new ideas and just share our experiences as human beings. And all of you, every single one of you that comments and watches and even just is there for the video, you guys are what are making it seem like such a community that I'm involved with. So thank you all very much. And what this video is going to be about, I thought to myself, I was thinking about what would make a good topic for my 400 subscriber special, because I kind of did have this video in mind, but not the topic. And I was thinking, it would be a good topic, how I became spiritual, how I found spirituality, because according to my YouTube channel, I just came in out of nowhere and was just talking about these spiritual topics and psychedelics and all this stuff. And I've never really taken a moment to share with you all how I got to this point in life and kind of just the kind of person that I am and that I was, and the whole journey that took place up until right now. So to begin this story, I feel the best way to start it off would be to talk about what I was like as a young child going into puberty. I have this image burnt into my head of a specific moment in my life around that stage. I was looking at my toys. I don't know what toys it was, whether it was my Pokemon cards or some sort of like action figure or something. And I'm crying my eyes out because I want to play with my toys. I want to keep doing the thing. I want to keep playing with my stuff. But I was no longer driven. I was no longer interested, I guess you could say, in playing with the toys. It felt weird animating them and doing, it would be like if you were to pick up an action figure or a toy that you played with as a child right now and try to play with it. It's kind of alienating. It's kind of weird seeming. And the initial occurrence of that sensation of not being interested in my toys, I felt like I was being forced into this way of how I was supposed to be. I'm supposed to be this way. It's time to smarten up, get real. Toys aren't cool. What's cool is girls and popularity and, being funny and that kind of stuff, like school stuff. And I felt like I was being forced into something that wasn't genuine. Like I was being pushed into something that wasn't me. And I didn't want to go. I was holding on for dear life to my childhood, to my toys, to my TV shows, to my, the way your mind works as a child and wanting to just be creative and do this and do that, rather than just being a lazy teenager that's only interested in communicating with his friends and his girlfriends and stuff like that. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to be a kid forever. But naturally, I started, digressing from a child into a teenager, and it became less and less impactful on me to not be playing with my toys, I guess. But I really do feel like that stage of my life was what, sort of kick-started I am a part of something that I don't agree with or believe in or something, and it was very subtle, very in the background and just lingering, very, very quietly. And I feel like that was the initial thing. The next thing I remember really about how this journey unfolded was, like, basically, I started smoking marijuana around the age of 13, and that may have played a role in the progression of my, I guess you could say, childhood, because now I was no longer hanging out with people, and instead of finding joy in sports or going on a jog or hanging out with friends, I found joy in smoking weed with myself or one friend. It didn't matter if anybody was even there. I found joy in getting high. And this was very ostracizing because I was in 6th grade, you know what I mean? I was in 6th grade when I started smoking weed basically regularly, as regularly as a 6th grader can. But yeah, it made me feel like all the people around me were on this weird, like they were the weird ones, and they were like focused on all these weird superficial activities and hobbies and interests, and what I was doing was more down to earth and, like, I guess, like, more legit. I thought to myself that what I was doing was more like, rather than feeling like I was like a druggie, a stoner that needs weed to have fun, which I did have put onto me. I found it very just relaxing and euphoric and joyful to just be chilling, smoking weed. I didn't have a problem with it or with myself, And this leads me to the next thing of getting in a relationship with a girl that this was my longest relationship yet, and I got into it about, like, I think I was like 14. It lasted for like 3.5 years, and yeah, she was obviously, she was younger than me. She didn't smoke weed. She was against weed, all drugs. And I was obviously hiding it from her and not telling her, I have, but I don't anymore, but I really was. Yeah, and she started just getting on me about the smoking weed, and it was making me, like, question myself, like, am I like a stoner, or, like, am I addicted to this? Is this bad for me? And stuff like that. Basically what she was putting into my head, which is all stuff I had heard about. But it was my girlfriend, and she's telling me, you can't do this, or we can't be together, and shit like that. And we loved each other, and obviously it was something very serious and important to me at that time. So at this point in my life, I'm basically not spiritually inclined at all. I'm 14 years old, and I smoke weed. My mom is into witchcraft, and earth and that kind of stuff. Very, very just nature-y. And that always kind of played a role in me a little bit of just, go back, baby. Sorry, my cat's getting in. My mom just having this sort of soft, gentle, nature-esque, like motherly calmness vibe. That was kind of, I guess, what I thought of as magic. You know what I mean? Like a sort of just, like, not blow your mind shit, but just, I guess, a connection to nature. But I wasn't spiritual at all. I wasn't researching anything. I wasn't following anything. I wasn't even trying to do anything. I was just, doing my thing. I thought that was life, was having this girlfriend and going to school and hanging out with her when I can, and, that whole trip. But as a 14-year-old. So I think I was 15. I think I was about 15 or maybe even 16 when me and her broke up. This had been an ongoing thing for a few months at least, where I was just not feeling connected to her anymore. I didn't feel any sort of emotion towards her. And what I did feel emotion towards was what we used to be and how we used to act and what we used to say. And it was like I was attached to the past, and what she was now was no longer what I wanted. And to make it even more conflicting for me, this is freshman year. There was a girl in one of my classes who was a new girl because in the high school, a couple different towns of kids can join together. So there was all sorts of new people at the school. And there was this one girl in particular, and any sort of like joke I made in class, she'd laugh at, and then, and that obviously caught my attention. And once we started talking, I started seeing like, oh shit, this girl is basically like what I want my girlfriend to be. And that immediately was a predicament. Was now I'm with my girlfriend and I'm wishing she was like this other girl, So that is basically what boiled over for us, and, I no longer had feelings for her. And this event was probably a big turning point, because I feel like I did deeply love her. I feel like I did love her with a real sense of connection and emotion. And I remember, just kind of like I remembered that burnt-in image of me as a kid with my toys crying. I remember very vividly me and my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, sitting in my bathroom on the floor, and we're both crying our eyes out because she wants me to be in love and be happy and be, want to stay in a relationship. And I'm crying because I want to be in it too, but she's not. I don't feel any rush. I don't feel any connection. And that's making me cry because I want to be with her, but there's no drive. And that really showed me, it fucked with me for a while. The power of attachment and connection and being attached to an individual as a person, an external thing, making that your source of love and happiness and zest and fun and all that stuff, and then just having that pulled away from you, or rather feeling like, yeah, I guess it was kind of pulled away from me. Even though I was the one to stop to lose feelings, I didn't want to, So that breakup really showed me a big play of, first of all, love, and being attached to the past, and wishing things were how they used to be, and wishing for those butterfly moments back in the first, couple times hanging out and that stuff. But that wasn't the only thing I was shown. I was also shown, like I said, finding happiness and love in another person. And that was pulled away from me. So now I was left thinking my source of love and my source of happiness is gone. So I was basically, I turned my eyes right to that girl that was in my class in high school. Uh, you can call me dirty, you can call me whatever, really, but she was what I wanted, you know what I mean? She was what I wanted. So me and her basically became best friends, but never more, you know, and I just basically settled for the fact that she's hanging out with me and doing that and laughing with me. That was good enough for me. I didn't need to be kissing her and that, you know, I didn't need to do what you do in a relationship to be satisfied. I was fine with just being this girl's friend. But basically she slowly turned her head away from me as well. You know, well, not as well, but she started just veering off from me and hanging out with me and talking to me, and you know, I had heard she was having relations with these other guys and stuff, and I was like, okay, I see what's going on, you know, like just kind of bummed out, like, oh, I can't, there's no chance here. So I'm going to hop right into the age of 16 because the experience with that girl, I think, was like between 15 and 16, you know. The girl in my high school, not the one I was in a relationship with for 3 years. But yeah, there was the breakup and then that weird transition with that girl in high school. And then I got a job at a restaurant. I was working in a kitchen. And there was another girl there that I basically put my eyes on, and we became best friends and nothing more, you know, but nothing less, so I was okay with it. I was like, I'm not going to push it. I'd rather just talk to her and hang out with her and stuff, you know. But it ate at me and ate at me and ate at me about, oh, I want to be with this girl. I want to be with this girl, dude. I wish she wanted to be with me, you know, and I basically I quit working at that job because I couldn't stand being there wanting her so bad but not getting her. So I was like, alright, I'm not gonna fucking put myself through this anymore. I need a new job. But even while I had this kitchen job for probably pushing half a year before that, I was beginning to look into very surface level spirituality. I was starting to look at things like Buddhism and basically like what they think, because I see the very calm, very collected, the cliche image of Buddhists. They can control their minds. They are always happy and this stuff, and it's making me think like, what are they doing to be happy? You know, how do they live their lives? So I started looking into very mundane spirituality. And I remember being in, I think it was sophomore year, and I'm in class and I'm saying things to people next to me like, yeah, man, life is like a path and there's rocks in that path and you're not going to be able to dodge every one. You're going to trip over some of them, but you got to get back up and keep walking, you know, cuz you can't just give up cuz you tripped over one rock, you know? And those were the very, very first foundations of my, I guess what you could call wisdom, my spiritual teaching. I was starting to look at life as this thing that I'm working with, I guess. Because during this stage in my life, like I said, I was smoking a lot of weed. I was smoking weed regularly. I was what you'd call a stoner. And I was also getting in trouble with the law a lot more frequently than I wish I had been, because, you know, and it was usually associated around weed. Smoking weed in public, bringing weed to places I'm not supposed to, buying weed, selling weed, having paraphernalia, all these different things. So I was getting on probation. Word was going around that I keep getting in trouble with the law for smoking weed. I'm starting to be looked at as a stoner. I'm starting to be looked at as I'm not a good kid. I'm not a good kid. I'm not interested in school and my work and sports and friends. I'm interested in getting high and leaving school and just doing nothing but cheech and bongs. You know, that was how people were starting to look at me. And I took I took that role and ran with it, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I smoke weed. Yeah, dude, it's out there. Yeah, you know, you want to smoke with me? It's not bad. It's not bad. It can't kill you. You know, I had all the research. I knew what I was smoking. I knew what I was doing. I knew that a young mind could be compromised, but I was like, I'm compromised, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I was just there must be so many of you out there as well that are like that. But yeah, I was in that whole stoner like persona attached to me started around like 6th grade when I first got in trouble with marijuana. People were like mind blown that a 6th grader was smoking weed, and it was me, and I was the first one in that school to be like known to have gotten in trouble for smoking weed, and that just carried with me. I was looked at as a troublemaker, and I also had a lot of ADHD, or what you call ADHD. I was just very hyperactive in class. I was the class clown, always making jokes, always messing around, you know, messing with the projector, unplugging it, or just doing these little silly things, you know. I was that guy. People laughed at me, but they thought I was like scummy, like not a good influence. That's what it is. I wasn't a good influence. So I'm working at Gritty's. Sophomore year, I met a kid. His name's Xavier. And we immediately hit it off. Partly because he smoked as much weed as I did every single day, you know. Loved bongs, loved different strains and all that stuff. So we started hanging out like all the time. We would go to his girlfriend's house after school, which they all called the bakery, you know, and there's these bong tables and big speakers and sofas and chairs everywhere and an Xbox, and tons of people would come over and just smoke weed and hang out and laugh and hit vapes and listen to music, and it was just such a vibe that I had never been introduced to. I was never a very social person up until hanging out with Xavier, becoming Xavier's friend. And they introduced me to a music artist known as Chance the Rapper. You may have heard of him, you may not have heard of him. He doesn't make much music now, but he used to back like in like I think like 2012 to 2015 area, and before then as well, but that's more so when he was popular. But, you know, I remember Xavier asking me, yo, you know Chance the Rapper? And I'm like, no, who's that? And he's like, you've never heard of Chance the Rapper? Oh my god, we gotta put Chance on for this kid. You know, and they played the whole album. And what album they played was Chance the Rapper's album, Acid Rap. I highly recommend going and listening to this album. But that album, listening to the songs and the vibe and the energy of it, the album's called Acid Rap. Chance the Rapper talks about himself that during the making of this album, he was using LSD and working with LSD to help make his music. And I had barely thought about psychedelics. I didn't really even know the word psychedelic at the time. I just knew of like acid and mushrooms, and I was at the point in my life where I was like, LSD, fuck no, that's synthetic, that's bad for you, it'll kill you. I'd never do that. But mushrooms, that's more natural. It's kind of like weed. I might try it, but I don't have a reason to right now. And the only reason prompting me to maybe try mushrooms at that time was that I was what you'd call a hippie. Everybody put that on me, and I felt like it, so I was like, yeah, I'll probably try mushrooms at some point. But no further thought put into them, the psychedelics, at all. And then they lay on me Chance the Rapper and Acid Rap and all these songs that was just fueled by LSD. It made me it made me wonder what LSD was, and attached to that wonder was such mystery and awesomeness and like retro cool, like, I don't know, it just seemed so like different. It's like, what is this LSD thing? I thought acid was bad. How did he use it to be creative and have better, relationships and be more inspired and think deeper about yourself and realize your problems and stuff? So I started wondering, what is LSD? What is acid? What's that all about? And the crew at the bakery, Xavier's girlfriend's house, they would all tell me, oh yeah, we got friends that have tripped. They love it. They say it's so crazy, it's opens your mind up and stuff. And Xavier's girlfriend used to trip years back and saying like, yeah, you got to be careful because you can have some weird experiences on psychedelics. It can like open you up and you can realize these things that you weren't ready to realize. And I'm just like, yeah, taking in all this information about this thing, LSD. And basically I became obsessed with LSD. I remember I'd be in school and I'm researching LSD. What is the LD50? What's the pharmacological makeup? What's the subjective effects, physiological effects? All this stuff, everything. Trip reports, what does it look like? What are the different forms it comes in? Research chemicals, how a lot of people sell tabs that don't even have LSD. I was just, it all came the research of psychedelics, of LSD. And of course, I was realizing that psychedelics in general are this really crazy, really mystical, and apparently spiritual thing. So I was like, okay, LSD, psychedelic drug, spiritual. I'm kind of spiritual, you know what I mean? And I learned about the 60s hippie culture and, most importantly, learned about Ram Dass and Timothy Leary, Ralph Metzner, Alan Watts, and this little gang of people, just this little gang back in the 50s and 60s and stuff, that any way you describe psychedelics now, they most likely coined. They most you know what I mean? Like the ego death and boundary dissolution and heroic dose and closed eye visuals, open eye visuals, morphing, all the description of the experience. They were all the perpetuators of it. They all talked about it all. They all wondered what LSD was as well and took it. And looking back on that era, that you can see what happened. And I was just so intrigued by these psychedelics. I was like, what is this? And I had a friend who I've featured on this channel before. His name's Nick. Sadly, we don't talk much anymore, but we started hitting it off together as friends because we used to just hang out, like get together and go out and hang out in town, and walk around and talk and joke and stuff. And then eventually, one of those times in town, he told me he smokes weed, and I had known Nick for a long time, as well as my other friend Jake, and they didn't smoke weed. I was the only one that smoked weed. They looked at me like I was crazy, like I was a bad kid, but they liked me as a person, and they wanted to be my friends, but they're like, no, I'm all set with the weed, bro. Stay away from me with that shit. But yeah, Nick tells me he smokes weed, so we start smoking weed together. And basically, that created a spiritual environment for us. And we started researching spirituality together. We would smoke weed and we would talk about Buddhism and Hinduism and the Tao. And we got into working with psychedelics a lot. Not taking them, but more so just researching them and wondering about them. And if you know about like Dennis and Terrence McKenna, we were like them. We literally would go out into the woods, dude, and he didn't often take the trips, but I would go on these trips, and we'd be out in the woods, and it was just like we were finding ourselves. It was like we were being reborn. This oh, I'm kind of like splicing the time range. This is after I had taken LSD, and I haven't even gotten to the first LSD experience. But hold on, let me take it back a second here. So yeah, Chance the Rapper introduced to me, shows me LSD. I've been studying the fuck out of LSD and Ram Dass, listening to Ram Dass and Timothy Leary and this whole movement of psychedelics, and I was like, I need to try this shit. So somehow, on an alternate planet, I acquired LSD. And I did it at Xavier's house. Oh, no, I didn't. I did it right here. With my brother. He didn't take it. He was my trip sitter. Because I knew set and setting, you're going to want to have a trip sitter, especially if it's your first time. I was all set. I knew what's up. And I took one tab. It was a little white tab. I took it at like 6 in the morning. And I had an awesome experience. Awesome first psychedelic venture. And I actually have a trip report video on that, so you can go see that if you want. But nevertheless, it was a magical, life-changing experience. And that LSD experience basically hurled me headfirst into what people these days call a spiritual awakening. To the degree I was having these physical symptoms where I was looking up like, what the hell is happening to me? Or like, I was looking up what happens when you have a spiritual awakening, because I knew, yeah, psychedelics can make you have a spiritual awakening and all this shit will happen. You'll feel so different. Your life will be different. And I was feeling different, physically. I was seeing all these lights, and my legs would get tense, and like if I was in a dark room, I'd be seeing all these like what looks like phosphenes, like when you rub your eyes. Now you could call that HPPD, but I was as well at the time. But I feel like I was going through some sort of weird psychological change, because I remember after that first LSD experience, before I even knew what ego death was and my ego and all that stuff, I remember standing in my room, and you see my tapestries and my flags, and behind the camera here I have all these Buddhist and Hindu statues and books and stuff and pictures and incense, mala beads, rocks. I was just looking at all this stuff, and I was like saying to myself, you're a phony. You're a fake. You're not spiritual. You think you're spiritual. None of this stuff makes you spiritual. None of this stuff amounts to what you're making, what you think it amounts to. And I was like, I felt like I was a douchebag. I felt like I was a poser, pretending to be this person. And I was like, oh shit, I need to, like, basically it was like the psychedelics were telling me to throw away all my belongings. Throw everything away. Everything. And I've heard this talked about with Terrence McKenna when they were down in, what's it called? Can't remember it right now. La Chorrera. They were down in La Chorrera, and they went through a wild episode with psilocybin mushrooms, where the mushrooms were telling them, throw away everything, you don't need anything, and all this crazy shit. And that's kind of what I felt like the psyche, the LSD, was initially telling me, but I wasn't even on it at that point. And I'm looking at myself, and I feel like I'm fake. And I start to feel like, I guess, what you could call dissociated. Or it felt like I was seeing myself. Prior to this, I was me. I was my ego. I was myself, and lived vicariously through that. I lived out of it. I was it, and, But after this LSD experience, which wasn't even revolved around spirituality, I felt like I was seeing myself, seeing who I think I am. Or at the time, what I'd call it was, I see my ego. I see my ego. That's what I would have called it at the time. And this, discovering ego was a massive turning point as well. Because that's when I started realizing that you can slip in and out of ego, and sort of let it run your life, or you can get a grasp on it and calm it the hell down and get it to simmer down a little bit and not be so sporadic. And, so I was starting to think that, I guess you could say, I began doing sadhana. I began doing spiritual practice. I started trying to meditate. I started trying to be okay with things. I started trying to not act egoically. And I got to say as well, the amount of Alan Watts and Ram Dass lectures and study of Indian saints and yogis and gurus and all this stuff was also happening simultaneously amongst this LSD experience. Not, just right in that time of my life, it was all unfolding. And it was making me feel like I was, discovering my true self. Kind of like I gave a spoiler of earlier. I felt like I was, reborn. Felt like I was, I felt like I had, remembered myself. I was taking LSD a lot, I was doing it every weekend, every 2 weeks or something like that. And I did it 4 times. And then I acquired DMT. This occurred in an alternate planet as well. And DMT knocked my socks off as well. Just, that was LSD seemed to show me myself and put me right back in reality. Boom. I am here now. What am I going to do about it? Look at this mess I've created. But DMT seemed to show me the mysterious psychedelic realm. I would take some DMT and I'm in a it was just this visual world. And it's this rush, and it's right there, and you're in it. And it was so crazy. And it had nothing to do with my ego. It had nothing to do with spirituality. All I knew was that when I was doing that DMT, it felt like I was going home. It felt like I was returning to myself. It felt like I was going back to a realm that I've always been a part of, that I just forgot. And this all this is when my brother came into the equation, actually, because interestingly enough, uh, I took my LSD, and my brother Keegan ended up moving out of my house, and we were not talking for a long time. And long story short, I found out that he was, we started hanging out again, and I told him about psychedelics and whatnot, and he, on his own time, started taking LSD without even telling me about it. And basically, we found spirituality together. We found ourselves together, and we were doing DMT together. We were doing LSD together. Basically, what blew this all out of normality was the psychedelics. So yeah, I was using DMT and LSD. Every now and then I would get my hands on some mushrooms, which to this day I don't even have much experience with. But my life was beginning at the ages of 17, 18. My life felt like I was a psychonaut. I was like a spiritual, like I am finding something. I am finding something right now, or at least I'm getting there. And I, on LSD, had a extraordinarily life-changing ego death, almost twice. You know, 2 times I got blown away completely, and was shown my ego, and was shown that I am not that. I am not that. What I am is all this. And I have a trip report on that. I can't even begin to articulate it, even paraphrased. But yeah, that really changed me. And this whole idea of having an ego was setting in, and, I was working on myself. I was directly focused on this ego thing, and, how it's controlling my life and how it makes up what I think reality is and stuff. And Ram Dass and Alan Watts were like my friggin' floaties in the ocean of insanity. But